Welcome back to the CommittedConservative.com. I'm Rich Kelsey. I'm committed and I'm a conservative. And guess what? It actually is Friday. And you know what Friday is, folks. It's Fired Up Friday. And what are we fired up about today? What's the nation fired up about today? And when I talk about the nation, I'm talking about the decent people of America. Constitutionalists, people who respect the rights of others, people who know how to live in a civil society and have a civil discussion. That's the nation I'm talking about. I'm talking about our nation. I'm talking about your nation. I'm talking about the nation. And I'll tell you what we're fired up about. We simply can no longer suffer. We can't put up with. We can't take any more of the liberal tolerance. Right? Boy, they are a tolerant collection of little fascists. Because that's what's happened now. We've been talking about this. We've been writing about this. We've been speaking about this. The Democratic Party, the pro-life, pro-military, pro-liberty, pro-civil liberties party that once belonged to John F. Kennedy and the Democrats, who on many issues, held the high ground, that party is dead. Dead and buried. Your party, if you still have the misfortune of associating with Democrats, is a party of radical leftists, statists, fascists, the intolerant. They take to the streets and they smash, and they burn, and they loot, and they riot, and like radical Islamists, they're wearing their face covered in black. They're all in black. They're in combat gear. That's who they've become. And alongside of them is a whole list of rubes and radicals, right? People wearing their vagina hats and vagina costumes. People just making utter fools out of themselves because we have gone to a hysteria-based society rather than a thought and reasoned-based society. Listen, the radical left wants to talk about equality and they want to talk about civil rights, but they don't actually want equality. They want their rights to be more equal than yours. Get it? Good. Because when people get on TV and they say, as one of those nitwits, and I do mean nitwit, dumber than dirt people on The View said, okay, you know what she said? I don't understand why a woman's word isn't enough. Well, sweetheart, cupcake, you don't understand America. You don't have a basic, baseline, rudimentary understanding of the United States Constitution and liberty and due process and the right to demand and confront your accuser and prove their accusations. Honey, if you want to be equal, then your word, my word, or anyone else's word deserves absolutely no more benefit than someone else's. You think your word should be taken because you're a woman? This is a direct and proximate result of what the radical left has been doing under the false flag of diversity for nearly 3 decades. They have been chopping Americans up into little tiny subgroups, okay? The beauty of America is like a homemade pot of chicken noodle soup like your grandmother used to make, okay? There's a lot of stuff in there. And when you put it all in there together and you let it boil up and you stir it just right and you do everything the way you're supposed to, you get a fabulous recipe. What the radical left is trying to do is they're just trying to take all the ingredients out one part at a time. And then they can't figure out why the broth doesn't work. Okay? They want to chop us into little tiny groups. They got the African Americans. You got the LGBTQ. You've got, white, rich, well-groomed, male conservatives. You've got privileged people and non-privileged people. You have immigrants and non-immigrants. No. Here's the deal. This is America. You're either an American or you're not an American. Simple as that. We got to learn to live as one country. We have to stop counting by numbers. We have to stop dividing by our differences. And this is exactly what's happened now. See? Everybody gets special little rights. Everybody's a victim. Everybody's been mistreated. My group deserves more rights than your group. Heck, the United States of America, through the Supreme Court, in a naked act of what can only be called state-sanctioned racism, they've actually glorified and said, listen, the law can treat certain groups a little bit better than other groups. Why? Because in the past they were treated poorly. Listen, I understand the emotional reasoning for that, but an equal America is an equal America, equal under the law. We can never make people respect each other in equal fashion. That's a part of the civil society that's done through years of conduct. That's a part of the decency we're trying to ingrain in our society. But under the law, we can only be equal. And once someone's more equal, it's no longer America. What the radical left wants is they want to be heard and they don't want you to be heard. They want to be believed and they don't want you to be believed. Listen, we can't live in a society like that. We can't stand that form of, quote, tolerance. I have never in my entire life met anyone more intolerant than the mouth attached to the human being that screams the loudest and claims to be the most tolerant. You know what those people are? They're intolerant, and they are radical leftists, overwhelmingly radical leftists. And let me be clear here. I don't care where you fall on the political spectrum. I don't care what color you consider yourself. I don't care what party you associate with. There is no room for intolerance. No room for racism, no room for bigotry. There's no room for sexism or ageism or classism. There's no room in the United States of America for traditional socialism either. We are a country of liberty. We should treat each other with decency and civility and equality under the law and as a matter of human respect. We can never put up, not once ever again, with what's going on. And let me tell you, if we don't stamp out this idiocy, if we don't defeat this charge of the fascist left, if we don't pinpoint and annihilate what has transpired as a result of the hijacking of the Democratic Party, we are not far from combat in the streets. I'm not talking about troops and uniforms. I'm talking about decent Americans finally standing up against the indecent. Okay? The Democratic Party, as I laid out before, was once a great party on the right side of a lot of issues. Say what you want about it. You may not like that, you may not believe that, and you may not have read your history book. But this Democratic Party is filled with radicals. They have no relationship to what was once the Democratic Party. You know, the popular narrative in the mainstream media and by the alt-left is that the Republicans have leached far to the right. It's a bold-faced lie. It's a bold-faced lie. The Democratic Party has gone so far left. The Democratic Party, like most, by the way, civil human beings, used to be pro-life because the notion of killing innocent babies to, most human beings was abhorrent. You understand? They used to be pro-military. The largest percentage of military spending that ever took place was under JFK post-World War II. You know that? You ought to know that. Okay? Used to be pro-military, used to be pro-life, used to be pro-civil liberties, used to be pro-equality. Now it's all radicalism, socialism, fascism. And they use these code words. Let me tell you something. When you use the word privilege, you know what I hear? I'm an idiot. When you use the word to cut yourself into a subgroup, I hear racism, sexism, I hear classism, I hear some form of elitism. And guess what I really hear? I hear somebody speaking way out of their depth. Somebody whose IQ has 2 digits and not 3. And I'm not impressed. And I'm not going to be won over. And I'm not going to be convinced. And I don't care what stupid little college you went to or what little beautiful degree purportedly hangs on your wall. Show me the power of your reasoning and not the fire of your emotion if you want to impress me. What you have now on the left is a dangerous group of angry little people who believe they are entitled to a certain set of rights, who are still trying to litigate and refight an election that they thought they had in the bag, that they thought they had won. Enough of this. We've had enough liberal tolerance. It's time for Americans to be intolerant about the radical left and what they're trying to do to our country. Hey, that's why we're fired up. Because you know what's at stake here? The United States of America. It starts with the United, okay? It ends with America and Americans. You either want in or get out. It's as simple as that. You either represent the interests of legitimate Americans and our guests and friends and welcomed legal immigrants, or you're on the side of people who are here illegally, who are breaking our laws, who want open borders, who want socialism and redistributionism, and they want people to tell them what they can eat and how large their soda can be and how much money you have to give to this cause. There's nothing about that. There's nothing that resembles liberty in these concepts of the alt-left. And when they don't get what they want, they take it by force. America, you put those people in control of this country, and we will be in the streets. And let me be clear on this. The Americans will win that fight every single solitary time. It's time to stop taking seriously the alt-left, the radical left, and the media that they control. It's time to start showing our intellect, showing our decency, showing our compassion, and showing what America is really about, which is liberty, prosperity, and the civil society. And by God, the number one thing we need to do is stand up for that and be prepared to do so. Okay, I'm the Committed Conservative, Rich Kelsey. Thanks for tuning in. It's another Fired Up Friday, and if you're not fired up at this point, well, you're going to find out that liberty is going to be something you may have to fight for. And you know what? Maybe that's a good thing. Because liberty, handed down as an entitlement, doesn't seem to be working out in this country. Check us out again. We'll be back. If you don't like it, check us out anyway. You know what? People who don't like us, people who don't like our name, people who think that we're the partisans, you should be watching us because we're watching you. That's what's called thinking. That's what's called analysis. That's what's called understanding arguments. I think you like us. I'm glad you tuned in. I hope you come back. You can read what we write at www.committedconservative.com. You can also check us out on Facebook at Committed Conservative. It is one of the fastest growing conservative, free thought, independent sites in social media. You can follow me at Rich Kelsey on Twitter. Looking forward to seeing you. Looking forward to you reading our materials and looking forward to the privilege and honor of talking to you again. Thanks.